Hey, welcome back to the Build Show Network. Steve Basic here, and I'm back with my good friend Chris from Zehnder. As we talked about last week, we're going to dive a little deeper into the Zehnder system and what it's all about, and the layout, and all the details that we didn't cover in the general conceptual video that we did last week. So we're back here. This is the Zehnder Comfort Air Q system. Remember from last week, it was a 4-pipe system. We have these 2 pipes here. The one behind here is a supply pipe. The one in front here is an exhaust pipe. So obviously the supply pipe is bringing outside air. Notice I didn't say fresh air because we can't guarantee that. We can only guarantee that it's outside. But we're bringing that outside air into the system, and then we're exhausting that interior stale air to the outside. Now, one thing to notice, we don't have to go down and see the outlets, but there's a minimum displacement, I believe, Chris, right? It's like 10 feet?
Yeah, typically in codes it's 10 feet.
It's 10 feet, yep. And I like to get it so that if I can get one on one plane of a wall and turn the corner and get it on a second plane of the wall, I think that's an even better system. A couple things that you do want to be cautious of, and I've learned this from experience, but you don't want these vents, at least the intake, to be too close to the ground, so that when you cut your lawn, you get the nice smell of fresh green grass for about 3 days. You don't want to have it on a second floor just above a first floor roof where the sun is going to bake those asphalt shingles, and you're going to get that asphalt shingle bake smell for, the summer months. But anyways, displacement minimal 10 feet. If you could put them on separate walls, all the better. Now, Chris, these are insulated. Talk to me about why.
Yeah, so especially in the winter months, that's your biggest concern. If you don't have these ducts insulated, what's going to happen is you're going to get condensation around the outside. The interior air inside the ducts, both the exhaust duct and the intake duct, is cold air inside. So, if you've got cold air inside there and it drops below dew point in the room, then you're going to start getting sweating around the outside. So these insulate, and they're also got a vapor, your vapor barrier. So in both cases, you're eliminating that dew point issue, and you won't have condensation. That's the main.
And the beauty of Zehnder is it's made in, where are these systems made?
Well, the units themselves are made in the Netherlands, and then all the air distribution stuff comes from Germany.
Okay, so you never know what climate these are going into either.
Yeah, right.
So you have to kind of prepare for the worst situation, because you could be putting this in northern Minnesota, or you could be putting it in, San Antonio, Texas. Right. You just don't know. So we have to prepare for that. So these are our 2 pipes. We're bringing air in. So let's just trace that air for a minute, Chris. So the air comes in through this system, and it goes into this big white box.
It's gonna come in through that duct in the back. It's going to pass through a plenum that crosses this filter that's behind this cover. And basically, you've got your hexagonal heat exchanger core behind here. So the outdoor air is going to pass through the heat exchanger, get into this bottom plenum over here, and then it's going to feed through the box in the back.
Right. So there's a twin of this box
that's
basically behind it. Yep. So there's 10 tubes there, 10 tubes here. But you said it's going to pass through the core. Now, we have some options in that core, right? Yeah. And what are the options? Why would I choose one over the other?
Yeah. All of Zehnder's units come, they'll look the same on the outside, but you can order them either as an HRV or an ERV. HRV is, commonly called heat recovery ventilator. ERV is commonly called energy recovery ventilator. And the difference is the heat recovery ventilator transfers heat across the membranes between the 2 air streams. And it's the kind of heat that we normally think of with heat. It's sensible heat.
Right.
ERV, or energy recovery ventilator, is going to be able to transfer both that sensible heat and latent heat, or what we call humidity. So here we are in Missouri. Today is going to be 95. It's humid out. We don't want to deliver 95-degree air with all that humidity to the rest of the house. So in this core, in this enthalpy exchanger, the cool dry air from inside. It's cool dry, but it's stale.
Yep.
It's, that's going to get exhausted.
But it's a lower humidity than the other air stream.
That's right. So what it's going to do across the membranes, hundreds of membranes inside this core, is it's going to grab humidity from the incoming air. It's going to grab heat from the incoming air, and it's going to deliver most of that heat and humidity back outside. So now the outdoor air that comes in has been tempered. Feels almost like room condition.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we don't get the energy penalty of dealing with that moisture
Right.
and that additional heat. We're stripping it off before we deal with it.
Exactly.
All right. So that air goes through the filter, goes through that system, it goes up through our supply. Here's those 3-inch tubes that we're talking about that are highly flexible. You can snake them through the house. Do we have a maximum run that we strive to not exceed?
Yeah, well, in general, I'd say anytime you can minimize your run, without even talking about a threshold, in general, minimize the run, you get the system performing better. Just requires less fan energy.
Right.
But these will typically, a 50-foot run isn't unusual. You start getting above that, 75 feet, something like that, you're starting to stretch the system a little bit. You're gonna give up some of your performance. But 50 and under is pretty reasonable, I'd say.
The fan you spoke of,
Yep.
multi-speed, or does it modulate to understand?
So yeah, these are ECM fans, electrically commutated motors.
Okay.
And what that means is that they're digitally controlled. They're almost infinitely adjustable. The unit itself has 4 presets. So you have your away mode, and then you've got your low, medium, high. We typically live in medium.
Okay.
High is boost.
High is when we hit that button in the bathroom
yeah,
and
exactly.
say, hey, exhaust this place.
Yep, and that's going to be usually just a short timed sequence.
I gotcha.
Sometimes people, if kids go off to college or something like that, they might set the system down into low instead of medium
Right.
and live with low. Away mode is just that. You're going to go on vacation 2-3 weeks. You don't need all the ventilation, but it's still nice to have a little trickle of air going through the house.
Yeah.
And then you can ramp it back up. We've got an app, so you can do that from vacation. Say, hey, we're coming home tomorrow. Let's get the system wrapped up.
Prepare the house
Yeah.
for our arrival
Yep.
kind of thing, or if you have a vacation home that
Exactly.
you're coming to or whatever. Yep. And, one of the things too that I tell, when I work with the contractors is, I know we want to dedicate those to rooms in the house and where we live, but also I always say, hey, drop one in if we're doing a conditioned attic, drop one in there, drop one in the conditioned basement, because just like you said, it's that trickle effect. If the space is conditioned, we want to inject a little bit of air just to get a little bit of movement.
Yeah.
And keep that whole house kind of in flux rather than letting it be kind of steady state.
Yep.
And keep it moving. But yeah, and so those go to the rooms and they get distributed. You guys, I'm going to jump back to the studio. I'm going to grab their layout and we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth on how they figure it out. But one of the other beauties of working with Zehnder is I send them my plans and they do the whole system layout.
Yeah.
And you design the system, they put it, how many ports, how many CFM, where we tell them where the system goes, and they do the full layout. So they're that team collaborative player from day one, that their buy-in is just as much as everybody else's when it comes to the ventilation system. I saw you brought a couple little props here.
Yeah, get a couple of little odds and ends. So here's an example of that too. We wish we had a longer piece to show you. It's this is currently inside a coupler. This will come in a big bundle. We've got another version that's like a fiberglass version, and is more like a very robust flex duct. But
This one's highly durable. I know a lot of the contractors, they get that cloth one with the wire. That's the one you're talking about? Yeah. They like it because it's nice and flimsy and easy to work with, but it's not nearly as durable.
This you can drag through a frame and it's almost bulletproof.
Yeah. And pull
you can see in here that black line is a rubber gasket. It's an O-ring like this.
Okay.
So these fit around these grooves, and every place that one of these tubes gets inserted into a component, whether it's here or if it's up in the room at the register box, it's sealed off with one of these. So we've really taken seriously, our job, which is to deliver air to a specific room.
Well,
we don't want it leaking everywhere.
Yeah, and so that takes it to the point where, so Zehnder designs the system and you say, okay, we want 36 CFM to go to the owner suite. Well, how do we guarantee that 36 CFM is getting to the owner suite? Yeah. Because you guys take the time to care about every connection so that we're not losing air along the way that what you say is getting delivered is in fact getting delivered.
Yeah, and then with every quote that we send out to a customer, we include as an optional line item the verification or the commissioning service. And so, you know, if you want us to do it, we'll send somebody out.
Right.
And
you have a commissioning system nationwide.
That's right.
Right. So
Yeah.
no matter where we are in the country, you call Zehnder and say, "Hey, the builder's got our system in. We need somebody to come out there and commission it."
Yep. And if we got to fly them, we'll fly them. But whatever it is, and the reason for that is just as you said, we don't want to just we're a lot of detail in the design. We're trying to guide the installers to make sure everything that's been designed is done, you know, reliably. But then we're going to verify it in the end.
Well, one of the things that I find is pretty interesting is that this system specifically was installed by the HVAC guy here. But I know I've done a bunch of these systems where the builder said, you know what, I watched their install video on YouTube and then we just went out the next day, because it is so simple to just kind of click and lock these things in place that your guy's design is impeccable and easy to do. So these guys are just doing it themselves. And that way they don't have to wait on the HVAC guy to come around. They can run the hose and stuff.
It's pretty, once you get the concept, it follows pretty intuitively from there. No knock on the HVAC guys. We love them. But they're not used to this type of system typically. So when an HVAC crew sees this, we always ask them to slow down just a little bit. I know you know what you're doing. It's a little different.
Yeah.
And once they get it.
Well, it's that guy that doesn't want to read the road or doesn't want to ask for directions, right?
But
it's like, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing.
They're good to go too, you know. So we've had homeowners do it, you know, doing a retrofit in their house.
Yep.
We've had the builders do it. We got the HVAC crews doing it. It doesn't take a high level skill set.
Well, hey man, you stuck around for a couple videos. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate everything you and the people at Zehnder do for the building community, and you know, being a team player and helping us out, delivering good performing buildings. But thank you for coming out, chatting with us. We're going to jump back to the studio. We're going to break out their design, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So I'll see you back at the studio. Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Hopefully you enjoyed that little tour out there with Chris from Zehnder. You know, he really knows his stuff. Zender's a great company, like I said, great team player. Always there to answer my questions and help out myself, the builder, whoever needs help on the team. They have the answers on their equipment and such. So anyways, let's dive into a few details here. I'll show you some more of the stuff that Zehnder does when we call upon them for some work. So got my good trusted friend here, Big Red. Let's hit it. All right, so before we look at that, this is what we looked at last week. Remember, we had all these flow rates that Zehnder threw at us. Basically 132 CFM is how the system's operating. So we get 132 CFM of supply and 132 CFM of exhaust. So what do those numbers mean in the construction world? Well, let's talk about this sheet. So we send Zehnder a background on a plan, and Zehnder sends us a full layout of their system. So first of all, let's look in the basement. For the video, we're standing down here. We have the unit in the basement. This is the basement here. All right. And one of the things that we talked about was the exhaust air and the supply air being a minimum of 10 feet. So, because we don't want any re-entrainment. We don't want to be throwing bad stuff out, you know, here and have it come right back in. So we want to get that 10 feet away so bad stuff goes out there and good stuff comes in here. And then it goes into the system, and you can see here in the basement, we actually do have a supply and we have one exhaust. So that's kind of balancing out the basement. But we put just a little bit of CFM in there. You know, we're talking 12 CFM, but it's just enough to move the air around. On the upper floor, you can see here, this is the owner's
Sweet. This is that main box that goes all the way 3 stories, and then this is that cantilevered portion of the Hilltop Arrow House. So we have some extraction area there, 36 CFM, and then we have 36 CFM of supply. And just like we talked about that 10-foot rule on the outside, you don't want to have these right there where this is supplying into the room but then getting sucked right back in and not really getting to that part of the room. By bringing this all the way deep into the room and distributing out here means that that's slowly going to migrate into this direction for the extraction. And so what that means is we get this nice kind of loop of outside air happening in that space, so the space is getting fully ventilated. All right. The other areas here, you can see we actually have this little box in the walk-in closet with a whole bunch of pipes here. And that's a really good time to advertise one of my favorite concepts. So you guys are going to like this. So it's the idea of integration versus application. And I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think which one I like. Yeah, you're right. I hate the idea of application. Integration is the key to building science success, not application. We don't design as usual and then just simply apply building science principles. We apply building science principles into the integrated thought process of our design so that we end up with spaces like that. We end up with a double wall assembly here where we can run 8 or 9 of these 3-inch ducts up through the system. We have our open web truss system so that these systems can traverse them and come up. And you see we have a number of areas of exhaust where we're taking out of, bathrooms, mudroom, powder room, and we have supply going into the bedroom and supplying there. So the idea is we supply the bedroom, and this stuff is going to migrate back into these spaces and get exhaust. So we end up with that kind of loop happening there. And we also have these ducts that are running up this through that first floor, and they come into the second floor here at the foot of the tub, and that was intentional. They run above the closet into a soffit, into the soffit in the closet. And these closets are aligned intentionally because we like to integrate our systems. And we run a soffit across here, so it's nice and cohesive in thought. But then those ducts run in and are able to supply the room from there. And we have an extraction point because it's a bathroom. Remember from last week's video, you got that button. You hit the button, it basically goes into boost mode, which is basically high-speed mode. And the extraction of odor control and humidity control accelerates through the system. But anyways, Zehnder, they do a beautiful job assisting the layout. They lay everything out. They tell you how much CFM, where the duct is mounted. In this case, it's ceiling mounted. They tell you what register, the TVA 3T, the extraction valve, what type of filter goes in there, and how many comfort tube ducts come into that register. So they give you all of that information, and that's the information at every point of exhaust or extraction. So they do their job very, very well. They don't mess around, and they leave nothing to chance and nothing to question. So It's the kind of team player you want to work with. Just remember, integration, not application, is the key to our success here. All right. That's it for Big Red. And that is it for this video. Anyways, if you're looking for more, got over a year's worth of videos on there. Matt, Jake, Brent, Wade, and myself all have been very, very busy this past year and creating a whole bunch of videos on stuff we're doing every day. So look to watch it. And remember what the sign says, 7 times. Got to watch it 7 times. Hey, just relaying information to you. And we also got the new contributors there. Drywall Shorty, Mechanical Hub, Design Build Doug, and Zach Detmore. All 4 of them dropping some great information. So if you're looking for more of me, you can find me on Instagram, Steve Basic Architect, dropping information daily. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find me there. Find my daughter on Instagram too, Alexandra. She's dropping information. And you can find us on the Unbuild It podcast, where I team up with good friends Jake Bruton and Peter Yost. And we talk about everything building science, building construction, building theory, business, favorite books. It's all there. And it's on YouTube, so you get to watch the antics too. So go check it out. Unbuild It podcast. So anyways, we're fortunate to have you. Let's team up and make our industry a little bit better. So until next time, long live our buildings.